Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is Comics Today. This is a show that we do every single week on Wednesday to celebrate the best day of the week, that being New Comic Book Day. I was successful in making my way to the local comic shop and picked up some pretty awesome books. It was a light week for me, but I did pick up a little Marvel, a little DC, and a little Image, and we are going to look at those books in just a couple of moments. During this show, what I typically do is I talk about some news and some things that are on my mind, and I oftentimes have a guest or two join me on the show to make sense of some of the things that I try to focus on. And in today's show, we are going to have a guest, a guy that I have known for a couple of decades. He is a certified public accountant. He is going to join us here on the show to spend a little bit of time letting us know if we need to be concerned come tax time if we have been selling comics. And I'll be honest with you, I spent some time on the IRS's website. I am confused and befuddled, and I am hopeful that my buddy Rodney will help me to make sense of some of this stuff. And hopefully he can make sense for you guys as well. So hopefully he will be joining us here in just a few moments. And typically what I do during this show is I like to call out some comic book soldiers that have joined me in the live stream by highlighting those folks that have actually picked up some comics from their local comic shop. So now is the time. If you hit up a local comic shop and you picked up some books, go ahead and throw your list up in the chat. And if you had an opportunity to read some of those books over the last couple of hours, make sure you let us know which books we should put on the top of our pile. And before we get going, I will show you guys this book right here. I picked up 2 copies of the Future State Next Batman. This is issue number 2. This is the one that they showed us a few weeks ago. I think they dropped that, DC did. So I picked up 2 copies of that. And then I also snagged King and Black issue number 3. And then also the Todd McFarlane Philadelphia right there. I'm a big fan of Philadelphia and Rodney Barnes. So I went ahead and picked that up. And there was one other book that I picked up, but that book is actually in the outer room. It is being prepared for a video that I'll be filming a little bit later tonight. So I'm going to go to the chat to see what folks are picking up on this new comic book day. And again, seeing if there's some stuff that we should put on the top of the pile. So let me go to the chat here. The best day of the week, but sadly, I missed a comment. Where'd it go? Minnesota Geek says the best day of the week, but sadly, my shop didn't get their comics in. A lot of shops in Minnesota didn't get their shipments. That is an issue that is spread all across this country, my friend. It is not just Minnesota. I think that there are comic shops everywhere that are being challenged, and it almost doesn't matter whether it's Marvel or DC or, Diamond or the DC distributor. People are challenged with getting their books. So fingers crossed that they do get their shipment in a timely fashion and you are able to pick up your books. Gerald did not hit the shop today, but his books are in his pull file and he will get there ASAP. That's what's up. That's what's up. Welcome, Mr. Barr. Welcome to the channel. He said, I just subscribed last week. Great channel. I would have to agree with you, sir. Welcome to the channel, my friend. Seriously. Scrolling down through, Doug says, I'm a big loser. Oh, wait a minute. I'm a big... Oh my goodness. I am so sorry. I completely read that incorrectly. I might need to get my eyes checked. It said, I am a big New Comic Book Day loser. Oh, it did say loser. Okay. Hopefully hitting the LCS tomorrow. Sometimes I see things and it's like part of somebody else's comment and part of the comment I'm trying to read and they just become one. You know what I'm saying? Doug, you will get there. You're not a big loser. You just fell down on the 5-yard line, but you'll get up and you will score. Daniel, how you doing? He says he picked up Power Rangers, the next Batman 2. That's what's up. Immortal, what is that? Future State Immortal, Wonder Woman, and then also Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Leonardo, the good stuff. Wes, how you doing, brother? It's good to see you, my friend. Just got King in Black this week. That's what's up. I have not read it, to be honest with you. So I'm looking forward to reading that. Salsa, what's up, Regie? Great interview with Roger from 3 Men in the Basement. Yeah, man, thank you. It was cool. Roger reached out to me, man. He was like, would you be interested in doing it? And again, I don't think that you can consider yourself a member of the comic book community if you're not necessarily trying to participate in that comic book community. So it was cool to join him on the show, and people seem to like the interview, which at the end of the day is all that really matters. So, and I had fun. That's the other part of it. I had fun, and I think people did as well. So scrolling through some of the comments, you're seeing what else, and I just lost it. Brandon, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you, my friend. He says, hope my books are in the file and we'll check tomorrow. That's what's up. I try to get to New Comic Book Day every Wednesday, but sometimes, like you guys, sometimes the week gets away from me. Sometimes the shop doesn't get the books, and it just does not happen. The Tiger's in the house. He said he picked up, what is that? King in Black, Once and Future, X-Force, Doctor. You picked up a lot of stuff, man. Next Batman is dope for sure. Cable. Oh, he said they ran out of Philadelphia. I can't remember. It might have been Chuck. It might have been Chuck H that sent me the message about the Philadelphia book and the Todd McFarlane. I think it was him. If it wasn't, apologies to whoever it was that sent me that message. So I sometimes I sometimes lose track of all the names, but somebody hit me to it, and sure enough, I was able to snag it. So Ace says he's waiting for the books to actually come in the mail. Wes, thank you, brother. I definitely appreciate that. Milt, my man, Milt is in the house. Said Once and Future was good, also, no doubt, no doubt. Man, he asked me a couple of questions, bro. I was like, I don't know. He said, what was it? What kind of cartoon character would you be? I don't know. I drew a straight blank on that one. If anyone's ever done public speaking and you just totally bomb where your mind goes blank, then when he asked me that question, I was just like, where am I? I had nothing for him. And that rarely happens. But it's just one of those questions I did not anticipate. And I just didn't think of that one. So scrolling through some of the comments here. Oh, Chris Bigger. He is hilarious, man. What is going on? Scrolling through. Doug, what channel was that interview with Regie on? It was 3 Men in the Basement. 3 Men in the Basement, and it was the Cranky Canadian. Cranky Canadian. Gotta show the Canadians some love, so again, it doesn't look like people picked up a whole lot. And again, it was a little bit of a slow kind of week for me in terms of books to actually pick up. But again, the Philadelphia book is pretty cool. The Todd McFarlane, I'm definitely digging that. Looking forward to reading the King in Black. And if you guys haven't heard the news, there is some news out there right now that basically says that Donny Cates is done. Says he is done with the King in Black and done with Venom forever. That's what the headlines are basically saying. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if he's done forever. Forever is a long time, and there is a lot of money that can be given to somebody that will suddenly make forever seem like a very short period of time. But forever is a long time, and Donny Cates is a very young man. So, maybe he is truly done. Maybe he is trying to drum up, people's interest in that very last Venom. I think it's Venom 200 that he's actually going to be doing. So you never quite know. But there was a question that came to me the other day, and the question was around the lines of, if Donny Cates is actually done with Venom, does that mean that he's done with Null? And my answer to that question was absolutely not. I do not believe that Donny Cates is going to walk away from a character that he created, and while he does not own that character, the character is actually owned by Marvel, that is still his creation. And I don't feel like he's going to walk away from that character. In my head, I think that, creators are creative people. They like to create. They like to see their things come to life. And I don't think that they just then throw those creations away. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like even though he's done with Venom, with the Venom title and maybe even the character, I don't think that that extends itself to his own creation. And I think that if he continues to make money for Marvel the way that he has made money for Marvel, I think that they will continue to allow him to do things that excite him. And I can only imagine that the things that excite him would be things that he's created or things that he wants to create and then attach to Null. Because if you've noticed, that's what he's been doing. He's been building up the ecosystem, if you will, around Null and entrenching him into Marvel history. It's actually really, really well done to make this character be bigger than maybe it is in a faster amount of time. It's actually quite impressive what he's done. So what is this? Null will be perfect for Spider-Man to fight. Spider-Man is the first connection. Again, there you go. So I could see that happen. And then there's one of the big questions out there is what is he going to do next? Is he potentially going to bounce over and actually do Amazing Spider-Man? That would be fantastic. Or is he going to continue doing some other things? Is he going to go to DC? That's one theory that's out there. Another is that he's going to do some independent stuff. Some others, of course, have him staying at Marvel and doing more projects with Marvel. Only time will tell, how it's all going to play out. So, I think we do have to pause and acknowledge that Captain America has walked into the room. Steve, it is good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the live stream. Chris is saying no versus Blade. Bring it on, man. Bring it on. A lot of people are like, is no going to be in the MCU? And up until recently, I did not think that was going to be possible. I'm going to be completely honest. Up until recently, I did not think it was going to be possible for a new character like Null to certainly break on the scene and actually come into the MCU in any way, shape, or form, whether on the small screen or the large screen. But I have since rethunk those initial thoughts. I rethunk them. And I think that it is possible. I think that it is possible. Is it going to happen? I honestly don't know. But I think that anything is on the table when you have a really talented writer that is being given the keys to the kingdom, that has a desire to do Hollywood movies, and when Kevin Feige and the MCU can do no wrong. It is like the perfect storm in which for these things to actually happen. Rocket Games, what is it? Just picked up huge haul of ASM Spence run. The wall in his hurting. Brother, a huge haul of anything will put an impression, an indention in one's wallet. But congrats to you for being able to pick that up. Nullify Gibbon, sign me up. I actually just filmed a video a short while ago back here on the table, and I incorporated Amazing Spider-Man issue number 110 into the video. I always look for an opportunity to weave in the Gibbon. Any chance I get, we're going to Gibbonize it. Let me see. Scrolling through. You brother, I will tell you, Steve Rogers, we have honestly been on fire, man. The channel has been on fire. The last 28 days or so, we have brought in more than 500 new subscribers into the channel, which we've been, 500 a few times in the past, but it's actually some pretty nice trajectory that we are on right now. So fingers crossed that we can continue making that magic happen. And hopefully 15K subs is around the corner. And then very soon after that, hopefully 21K subs is around the corner. But the big thing for me is no matter how many subscribers we actually add to this channel, I hope that we never lose what we have right now, which is my ability to talk directly to you and your ability to talk to me, and for us to still have this back and forth. So fingers crossed that that does not change. All the DC guys keep chanting DC Donnie Gates, and I don't know if Marvel's going to let that happen. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we shall see how it all plays out. So at this moment, I want to go ahead and transition over to my good buddy, who has just shown up in the green room. And what's great is that his last name is Green. So the green is in the green. It's a wonderful kind of thing that is actually happening. But I want to welcome to the show my good friend, Rodney Green. It is good to see you, my friend.
Good evening. Likewise. I'm glad to be here today.
You are all fancy, my man. Ooh.
I have to represent for the profession.
What did you say for the profession?
For the profession.
Let me get this thing off of your forehead so we don't mess up that professional look that you have going on. I should have dressed up.
Hey, brother, it's your show. You can wear whatever you want.
Rodney, how long have we known each other? It's been over 20, right?
It's been over 20 years.
Yeah. I think you are my longest standing friendship. And I am very fortunate for that.
Likewise, brother.
This dude started me down a course, man. I was living in LA at one point, and Rodney came out to visit me. And as a CPA, he crunched some numbers. And I was living in this 1-bedroom townhouse in LA. And he crunched some numbers on, I can't remember what day it was, maybe a Wednesday, right? And he leaves LA on Friday. I go see my real estate agent like on a Friday. And on that Monday, I had a contract on my house because he crunched these numbers and he was like, the rent you're paying right now, you can have a house for like $100 more. I ended up doing it. So I tend to take his advice because he is a smart guy. He's only like 20 years old. I mean, we're like 20, but it's like he's like wise beyond his age. So, Rod, can you give folks, man, a 30-second rundown on you as a CPA?
Sure. Well, I've been a licensed professional CPA for over 20 years. I spent about 7 or so years working between the Big Four, between Coopers and Lybrand, now PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, and KPMG. And for the last 15 or 16 years, I've been the owner of an independent CPA firm, specializing in working largely in the federal government and state and local.
There we go. So one of the things that I want to throw out there right now is that while Rodney is a CPA and he does give me advice on the side, none of what we are about to talk about right now should be considered his professional advice to you. You are still encouraged to seek out your own advice when it comes to taxes and tax preparation. We are about to have a conversation for the purpose of entertainment. So please do not act upon what we talk about without consulting a professional on your own. So with that said, I want to start off with a few level setting questions. And I have 3 of them that I want to rip off. And I'll be looking for you to give me like a true or false, a correct, not correct, and then maybe some details if I'm incorrect on any of this stuff. Okay. So the first question that I have is, when it comes to income of any sort, whether from a business or from a hobby, must that income be reported on a tax return? Is that true or false?
Oh, it's definitely true. Uncle Sam wants his cut.
No matter what.
It doesn't matter how little it is. And in fact, if purposely failed to record some information, it can be considered fraud. And in the profession, there is a rule that fraud and failure to file forever. So in other words, that statute of limitation, you think 7 years and it goes away, it doesn't. If it's actually fraudulent that you purposely misled or withheld information, then there's no statute of limitations.
Got it. That's helpful. So the next question is, depending upon whether the income generated from the activity is deemed to be a hobby or a business, that will determine how the income is actually reported. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now, for your hobby income, it's usually line 21, which is other income. That's where you report that information.
There you go. And I'm guessing income from a job would be on a different line, whatever that line is.
Well, if it's an employee relationship, then yeah, that's going to report as wages. Now, if you own a business and you're a sole proprietor, you file a Schedule C, which is just the relevant information with regards to the business.
There we go. And then the last question, well, kind of sort of the last question is, if something is deemed to be a hobby, like this activity of comic book collecting or whatever is deemed to be a hobby, there are some special rules and also some limits for deductions that taxpayers can actually claim. True? Or I'm sorry, is that correct or not correct, I should say?
It's partially correct. So prior to 2018, a hobby was allowed to report the income as well as deduct the expenses subject to 2% of your AGI on Schedule A when you itemize. Now, as of 2018, that's no longer the case. Uncle Sam will allow you to report the income, but you're no longer able to take any of the deductions for the expenses.
Okay, so let me play that back to you. What I think I just heard you say is that if you bring in money from a hobby, you have to report that income.
That is correct.
But you cannot take any deductions related to that hobby after 2018.
That's correct. For tax year 2018, you're no longer able to report the expenses.
Okay. So
I mean, to be clear,
yeah, please.
Even prior to that, it was a bit of a stretch because again, you're subject to 2% of your adjusted gross income. So you still had to pass that threshold. Now it depends on if it's a hobby, you probably aren't generating a large amount of income. So your related expenses are going to be even be lesser. And it was always subject to the maximum, which was the amount of income you earned. So then surpassing that 2%, many people weren't able to claim any expense deduction regardless.
Because it never got to that 2% threshold. Exactly.
Now, as of 2018, that's no longer in play. It's just simply a matter of you can record the income, where you're required to record the income, but you're unable to take any deductions for the expenses.
Okay, because one of the things that I found in the research that I was doing was that it basically said if you have some expenses related to your hobby that are basically usual and customary for that hobby, then you could take those deductions to offset the income. And what I'm hearing is that that is no longer the case for several different reasons. Like we just explained the reasons, but you cannot take those deductions. Is that fair?
That is correct. As of 2018, that's no longer the case.
Okay, because I'll be honest with you, brother, I was prepared to take all kinds of deductions for my bags and my boards and my CGC membership fees. I was ready.
I mean, when you're speaking to that level and what you're doing, you tend to start to blur the line of whether or not you're operating as a business.
And that's part of what we're about to dig into, I think. Exactly. But go ahead, finish your thought. I cut you off.
No, and again, we can delve into that. You know, this is a great segue because, of course, you want to understand the differentiation between whether or not you're recognized as a business or you're recognized as a hobby. Of course, there are critical factors, and you've researched some of this, but the main differentiating factor is whether or not you're seeking to earn a profit, whether or not you're operating like a business to earn a profit, whether or not you're recording the information related to expenses, et cetera, as if you are a functioning business. Yep. And then lastly, it's not solely up to you to determine whether or not it's a business. If you are recording positive income for 3 or 5 years, Uncle Sam's going to say, hey, you're running a business. So you need to report it as a business.
And that distinction is one that I did not find, right? You're reporting income for 3 of the last 5 years is like a trigger or a flag that you're pulling in some cash, saying it's a hobby, but it might not actually be a hobby.
Exactly.
Okay. And I did not find that in my research. So I'm glad that you actually brought that up. One of the other things that I want to talk about at the top before we start getting into some more of the details, even though we've kind of stuck our toe in there, one of the things that I think people have believed is that if the trigger, the toggle between hobby and business is if I make a certain amount of money, right? So if I only made, and I'm making this up, $5,000, then that's not a business. That's just a hobby, right? Is it safe to say that a dollar amount is not necessarily a trigger to toggle between hobby and business?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, look at this past year with COVID. There are many businesses that are losing money, and they are businesses. So there's no threshold to determine how much money you made. Again, if you're required to report it, you don't want to run that risk because you say, well, it's minimal, so it's not necessary to report it. I mean, you put yourself in a situation where if you ever audited, and again, people are just audited randomly, and this comes out, they can go back a number of years. And not to go too far off the subject, but we looked at a lot of the mafia when they were finally arrested and went to jail, and it was alleged all the other crimes they committed. They largely went to jail for tax evasion.
Yep.
Because with, again, fraud or failure to file, if they tack on 5 years for every year plus their dollar amount, and they're going back 20, 30 years, I mean, you can spend the rest of your life in jail.
Right. What do I need to get you on a felony for when I can get you on tax evasion?
Exactly.
That's crazy. Okay. I don't want to go to jail. That's all I'm saying. And I'll be honest with you, man. I was in the kitchen with the wife yesterday when I was prepping for this show, and I was like, Kel, I don't think I'm a business. I'm still a hobby. And now I don't know now.
I mean, realistically, if you have positive income, I don't see the benefit of holding yourself out as a hobby, because again, you're still required to report it, but you're missing out on the eligible expense deduction.
By actually calling yourself a business, then you can take those deductions to offset that income. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So let me keep going on with some of this stuff, because I can do the back and forth that we just did all day and it'll still be great. But I do want to keep myself on track. So when I was doing this research, I was on the IRS's website, and on that website, and I will try to put this link down in the description for you guys. They actually identify 4 tips to consider to determine if something is a business or a hobby. And some of these tips in my mind were straightforward. Others were a little bit more complex, but we're going to spend some time breaking these things down. And we've already touched on several of them, but I want to circle back on some of it. The first tip that I saw was that there are allowances made for hobby deductions. And what I just learned from you is that I probably found some old information, because hobby deductions are no longer something that is in place since 2018, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Now, if I called myself a business to the point that we literally just made, I could take those expenses as deductions to offset the business, right? The business income. Right. But I would have to file, well, let me ask this question. To do that, would I have to organize myself as either some kind of corporation or an LLC? So like an S Corp, a C Corp, or an LLC, in order to call myself a business? Actually,
you don't.
Okay.
Look at it as far as if you're a sole proprietor or independent contractor, you don't need to have a separate business license, nor do you need to register yourself a business name or have an EIN. As long as you have a social security number or tax ID, you can easily file. So any sole proprietor, which in this case, if you are the sole proprietor of any hobby, then or a business now, then you can in fact file it on Schedule C.
Got it. The next one that I had here was around speaking to the limits on hobby expenses. But again, we just kind of crushed that one as well, to basically say you can't take those expenses as a hobby. Because I mean, I wrote down things like membership fees and bags and boards and all that kind of stuff, which are no longer allowable if I'm calling myself a hobby. But if I were to call myself a business and use the Schedule C that you just mentioned, then a lot of those now business expenses are deductible, correct?
That's
partially.
It can be claimed, yes. Whether it's deductible also depends upon when you started the business and whether it's related to startup expenses, et cetera. Now, it's a matter of you claim it, whether or not it is an expense that's deducted or something that's amortized based upon startup expenses. But again, my advice to anyone is, if it's an actual expense related to the business, you need to claim it. So we'll flush out how it's being claimed, whether it's an expense or it's amortized based upon startup costs, et cetera, 179 expenses. But again, before I get into those nuances, the fact is that you're largely correct. You will claim it as some sort of either expense or deduction.
So generally, just a matter of. Generally speaking, it sounds like the best piece of advice that someone could give would basically be to outline all of the income that has been derived from the hobby or the business, as well as all of the expenses. And like, I try to like outline the rationale. So what is this thing? Why did I do it? Right? Because the CPA might not be familiar with the hobby or the business in enough detail to like make those calls. So I'll put a little descriptor there. And then ultimately it's a discussion with the tax preparer or the CPA to say, here's what these things are, the income, here's what the expenses are. And then there's a discussion that ensues. Is that a fair statement to make?
Largely so, yes.
Okay. Where did I go off track there, or what would
you didn't necessarily go off track. It's simply a matter of getting back to the root, as I mentioned earlier, and you sort of alluded to there, what is the purpose? Is your purpose to generate income? And also, are you relying upon this income? You're generating money for the purpose of relying upon the use of it. So again, once we cross that barrier, then it becomes a matter of, okay, well, let's look at how it's faring. Because again, anybody can start a quote unquote business. But if you don't operate like a business, therefore you're just losing money, you're just putting money into it. Uncle Sam's going to step back and look at it and say, well, this is a hobby, because this isn't, you're not really generating any positive income. So he's not going to allow you to just continue to take deductions.
To take the losses. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, because that actually brings me to one of the more complex aspects of the 4 tips that were identified in this article. And one of the tips was, is it a business or a hobby? That was the question. But what came with that question was basically 9 criteria that someone had to consider. And then it became a thing of, here are 9 questions. But what I was struggling with is this an exercise where if I answer yes to 5 of the 9, then I'm a business or I'm a hobby, but there didn't seem to be that threshold. And so I was struggling with, how do I use these 9 criteria to evaluate things?
Right. So again, I took a quick glance at that. And again, I sort of like to focus in on the purpose, whether or not your purpose is to earn income, whether or not you have a fair understanding to run such a business, or again, if it's a business, you have a fair understanding to run such a business. Looking at factors of, do you actually conduct it like a business? Are you investing sort of time and energy into this venture? Are you recording expenses? Are you, again, it's overall the makeup of your activities.
Right.
Now, if it's something you just do casually, then it's sort of, can you prove that this is in fact a business?
Because part of it is that with the hobby of comic book collecting, you are, we spend a lot of time talking about these comics are investments, right? And they're investments in time, energy, and effort. There's money that is also involved, and you're doing this, with the hope that the book that you just bought for a lot of money will potentially go up in value. So there's a little bit of rub with this, right? Which is different if I were a hunter. For example, if I went out and I went hunting or I went boating, those activities are more recreational in nature, but comic book collecting to some degree or another is very much about the appreciation of the asset that has been purchased. And that's where I'm kind of struggling with this thing.
Well, look at it as if you acquired a personal asset that you hope that would appreciate, whether it's a stock or it's a home, and you're holding it for the purpose of allowing it to appreciate. You're not conducting actual business. That's a personal investment.
Got it.
There's no related business activity. Now, for example, let's use a home, for example, you purchased a home for an investment. That's not the business. The business activity while you're holding it is the rental activity. Now, that's an activity that's a business. So the house is not not actually part of the business. It's the activity of renting the house
that is associated with that
exactly.
investment. So using that logic, if I were buying comics for the purpose of letting them appreciate, but I was also selling comics and buying and selling at the same time, but I'm selling to buy, and I'm not selling to pay bills, like to buy food and to put shelter and to put, that kind of stuff. It's more like I sell this comic A to buy comic B and C with the hope that B and C will appreciate it. Would that be considered a business? And I'm not trying to be like Rodney said. It's more like,
again, I think you start to blur the lines, because again, you're not doing it for profit. Again, where's the profit center? There isn't really much money being generated in that circumstance, because it's more of an exchange.
Okay.
So of course you're going to have expenses simply related to the travel, the exchange, but there's really no positive income flow.
Okay.
Simply because it's more so dollars in and dollars right back out, because you're simply trying to, I guess, increase your bag so that you're holding something that's much more valuable. But again, at the same time, you're not increasing the monetary aspect. It's only the assets that are accumulating additional value.
That's super helpful. That the distinction that you made there was super helpful to me, and I have come to the conclusion that I'm actually a business. I within this conversation, I've been going back and forth, and I think I've landed on I might actually be a business. But again, there were 9 criteria there, and this was one of the criteria: whether you depend upon the income from your activity for your livelihood. I thought that that was a good one, right? Because it's like I have a job, but I do some selling and buying the comics on the side, but I'm not necessarily feeding people based upon that comic money. I'm not talking.
That's why I think that's a horrible one.
I'm talking about the proverbial me, not me, but the proverbial me, right? So, but that was one of the criteria, which I think you've also talked about. Here was another one, whether the time and effort you put into the activity indicates you intend to make it profitable. I will tell you that we as comic book collectors spend a lot of time reading comics, buying comics, selling comics, going to comic shops, talking about comics. But again, that is more of an entertainment thing than it is for the profit side of it. And so again, I think when you read these initially, they read one way, but then when you kind of dig into the details, you're like, I think I get the nuance that is there.
So there's a purpose behind these. They're trying to suggest whether or not you're actually investing in this for the purpose of being profitable. Because again, you could go through the process of registering a company name and getting a tax ID, but you're not investing any time. So even with that said, when you hold yourself out as a business owner, the fact is you're not performing any business activity.
Mm-hmm.
So even doing so doesn't necessarily mean that you are indeed a business, because we have a lot of people that start these businesses, but they don't have the wherewithal to generate income. For example, that's why it goes back also to the do you have the intangible skill set to participate or run such a business?
Yep.
That if it's something you just picked up and said, it's something I want to do. I mean, when you start off like that, it sounds very much like a hobby because you don't even have the understanding to be profitable.
Yeah, and that specific one was whether you or your advisors have the knowledge needed to carry on the activity as a successful business. And then one of the others that I actually had the time to type in was this one right here: whether you carry on the activity in a business-like manner and maintain complete and accurate records. That is like the bane of my existence right there.
Well, the fact is some businesses don't maintain complete and accurate records.
You see what I'm saying? And this is why I was like vacillating. One of the other questions I have for you is let's say that you were blogging for a website that does some comic related stuff, right? You were a blogger for them. You create content. They pay you $50. They send you a W-9. Is it a W-9 that you would get from them because they're giving you income?
Well, no, a W-9 is when you provide your tax ID so that they can indeed send you.
W-2?
Well, W-2 is an employee. Now, if you really want to know, it's no longer 1099 miscellaneous form to report income. It's now a 1099, baby. It's 1099 NEC.
Okay.
Non-employee compensation.
So
which is new for 2020.
They're making it complicated. Give me that again. What is that?
It's a 1099 NEC.
NEC. All right. So somebody sends me a 1099 Star Trek, because NEC is what's on Star Trek. They send me that because I wrote some blog post. Is that potentially a trigger for the whole business versus hobby, or is that just now income that has been identified that has to be then reported on, what was it, line 21 in my tax return? Is that how that would flow?
Well, actually, 1099s are any information that's, income related to 1099s are usually reported on Schedule C.
Okay.
Now, even though the activities may appear to be similar, that is a different activity that you receive from being a blogger. That amount is related to a sole proprietor to a business relationship, whereas they paid you as a non-employee. So you simply report that income, but I would not classify that to say that, mother activities now are a part of this. Because again, remember, you can have 4, 5, 6, how many different businesses that you want to operate. The same manner as many hobbies as you want. So there's no number to determine that, well, if I did this in a related field, then that means that I have to bring it all together and report all of it.
My man Matt just said Reggie's sweating a little bit over there, which is true. I'm glistening, brother. Tax time makes me nervous. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest with you. Tax season is a stressful time for me. So I'm looking at the comments here. We've been corrected that it is not a 1099. It is actually a 1099 NEC. So I stand corrected on that one. Scrolling through some of the comments here, Tina is one of my moderators, and she is like the most wonderful person ever. So she always takes up for me. She's like, the lights are hot, because indeed they are. Scrolling through some of the comments here. What is this? Yes, the IRS looks to match the 1099 with the other side, is what he's saying. Rodney, if you see anything in here that you want to comment on.
So essentially what he's pointing out is that you get 1099, the IRS has received the same thing. So you need to report it because they're looking for it.
There's a comment here from Wolf Blitz. He said, I would argue that the time spent searching, and I'm guessing searching for a comic maybe, should be counted if you're a business. Time is money is his comment here. And I don't know if I guess he's equating time with like gas mileage, right? So I spent my time. I should be able to take some kind of deduction if I am indeed a business.
Well, unfortunately, there's no related value to the time you invest especially in your own business, because as a business owner, you invest countless hours, and unfortunately, unless a client is willing to pay me, I don't get paid extra at all.
Would be nice though, right? So here's another question. If you get a 1099 from PayPal, then you should do a Schedule C so that you can at least take expenses, reduce profit, and pay less taxes.
The expenses related to that activity, yes.
Got it. Yeah, and
so,
I think
so again, it goes back to, you can't group all of your business activities related to any 1099 and say, well, I'm going to take all the expense for all my business activities.
Oh, we just lost Rodney. I think he's the one that is feeling the pressure now, so much so that he decided to just hang up on me. So there's a comment here that hopefully when he comes back, we'll look at this one. And the question here that someone is asking, Lee is asking, he says, I sell book A for $2K in exchange for book B and C for $50 each. And then I'm good, right, is the question. So Rodney's back, and here's a question from Lee. Comments on that, Rod?
Well, it looks like it's an exchange. You said sell book for $2,000 in exchange for. So in other words, you walk away with $1,000.
He still has a profit of 100 that would have to be claimed, right?
Well, no, we're looking at 2,000, and it was 500 each. So you walk away with $1,000.
Right.
Right. So in other words, that $1,000 is profit.
And so that would have to be counted as income in this scenario. Yes.
Exactly.
I'm going to tell you right now, I've done a lot of those deals and I don't have records on any of them, being completely honest. And I'm pretty sure Lee doesn't have records on it either.
And this is one of the things when you have more of a cash and carry, or you don't have those sort of records, because this is a normal record keeping. Because again, if you're similar to a hobby, you're probably not running. You're probably not running credit cards and things of that nature. So it's more of some of the cash apps or PayPal, etc. So there aren't those sort of records that the IRS is rarely able to get their hands on. So this is based upon someone being forthright to share the information that is related to their hobby.
Got it. I'll tell you, I have one guy, he'll do deals with me, but he also only does cash, like literally cash, not PayPal. Because I'm like, bro, PayPal is cash. He's
PayPal
like,
is a record.
He's like, the
ATM,
ATM is right down the street. And he'll just look at you. And so then I go to the ATM and I come back and I make magic, you know? But I'll be honest with you, Rod, this is a topic that I have struggled with a little bit. I'll be completely honest. But I honestly think that it is a conversation that is worth having, especially because a lot of us are moving money around. And I spend a lot of time on this channel talking about making the hobby work for itself, right? Making it fund itself. So I've encouraged people to sell books, to buy other books. And so in the continuation of those efforts, it was important to have this conversation in advance of tax season so that folks don't get surprised and don't jam themselves up, and actually take some time maybe to pull together their records records to have these conversations with their own tax preparer. So before I let you go, because I know that it is late for you over there, any parting thoughts, comments, or advice that you would give any of us out there that are trying to sort out this business versus hobby thing as it relates to comics?
Well, I also want to sort of double back to, we talk about the time investment. Now, there's no threshold to say that you have to spend X number of hours per week. So you can spend a minimum amount of time and be successful running a business on a small scale. Mm. So even if you only invest minimum amount of time, whether that's per week or per month, that doesn't mean that you're not a business. That doesn't mean you won't qualify as a business, because again, you could run, say you said, but your goal is to have 3 to 5 transactions a month. It takes you an hour or two, but you're generating income. And maybe you're only doing so because that's the only bandwidth you have to do so. Mm-hmm. But you're still generating positive income. So again, there's no threshold with regards to time, dollar value, et cetera, to determine whether you are or you are not a business. Again, it goes back to your overall intent, whether or not you're actually generating profit, and whether or not you have the knowledge and wherewithal to be successful.
There we go. So Rob, one of the last questions I do want to ask you is, if people want to get in touch with you to seek out some tax advice, are you open to that? And if you are open to that, do you want to provide people with your preferred means of contact so that folks can reach out to you? And it's okay to say no. We don't do the whole offensive kind of thing here on the channel. So if you're like, nah, I'm not interested, that's okay to say that. You don't have to beat around the bush.
Sure, that's not a problem. At worst case scenario, I can gather your thoughts, feedback, and push you in the right direction where you can even connect with someone that's maybe local to you as well.
There you go. So in that spirit, where can people get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, the easiest way is via email at rodney.green@Certeza CPA. That's CERTEZACPA.com. Rodney.green@CertezaCPA.com. And my direct number is 240-667-1415 and extension 113.
I'll try to put that in the description of the video so that people can actually do it. I should have been prepared and had it on screen, but you know, kids and stuff, you know what I'm saying?
I do know kids and stuff.
Rod, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for taking some time to spread this knowledge. I would thank you for dressing up, but that really made me look bad. I should have done better.
Hey, look, I just felt great putting on a tie for the first time in a year.
I don't even know where my ties are. My kids were playing with my ties last time I saw them, so I have no clue where they are. But again, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Be well, and I will reach out to you very soon.
All right. Thank you, Regie. Thanks for having me.
Love that guy. So Rodney, like I said, Rodney and I go back a long ways. We are both members of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And when I first moved away from him, like we were together in the Washington, D.C. area, and I moved to California, I literally spoke to Rodney every single day on the phone. And I don't talk on the phone. I don't talk on the phone to anybody. I talk to this dude every single day. That's how good of friends we are. And he is honestly a good guy. And I'm glad that he was able to come on here and help me to understand that I am probably in the category of a business. So I don't think that there's anything else that I want to try to address tonight. My head is about to explode. And as Matt pointed out, I am sweating over here because yes, it is hot, but that was also a deep conversation. A couple of reminders I do want to give you guys before I get myself out of here. I do want to give you guys the reminder that this is this week's Go Collect giveaway book. It is House of Mystery, issue number 180. This is a 9.2 with cream to off-white pages, and it is a pretty cool book. A lot of legendary creators are actually involved with this one. Gil Kane, Wally Wood, Bernie Wrightson, and also Neil Adams. Really awesome book, and this book could be yours simply for watching the videos that come out from the channel over the course of the week. And in one of those videos is a phrase that you can actually use to enter the giveaway. And I definitely want to encourage you guys to watch all of the videos that come out from the channel over the course of this week. And then the last reminder that I'll give you is that I still have this book. We actually announced the winner of this book on the Ready, Set, Go preview show on Sunday, and I posted it on Instagram, but the winner has yet to claim his prize. This is Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue number 1, a 9.8 with white pages. So make sure that if you entered that giveaway on Instagram that you check your DMs, because I also DM'd that person. When I tag them, it automatically DM'd them. So do not miss your chance to actually score that book. And I will tell you that I already have the second person ready to go. So if the person does not claim the book by Sunday, the second place person will be on deck. So let me go to the chat real quick to see. We will not make the phrase if I win that book, I know who's going to get it as an A-OK. It is actually a pretty complex book. I mean, there's a lot that is actually going on in Crisis in Infinite Earths, and I am in the process of like wrapping up the end of it as we speak, and it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool one. So Doug says that could be my favorite Go Collect giveaway. Well done, sir. Scrolling through some of the comments here, Milt, thank you very much. I definitely appreciate that. And again, I definitely want to encourage you guys to make sure you seek out some tax advice when it comes to this whole thing of taxes and the hobby and the business and all that kind of stuff. It is not necessarily straightforward, and it is better to get some professional advice to ensure that you do not jam yourself up. But I want to thank you guys for taking the time to join me for this show. I had a good time. I hope that you guys did as well. And certainly, if you need to reach out to me, you can do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.